All right, well, this is the part 2 of the video series that I mentioned I was going to continue with. It's been kind of cold weather and haven't been able to get to it for a few weeks here, but it's a nice balmy 50 degrees here in February now in Maine. In any case, I'm going to continue stepping through this manual here. I'll actually just go through what I've got next on the list here. So basically I have to I have to drop this lower section, which is called the extension case. I actually refer to it as the lower unit, but I guess really the bottom section is the lower unit. The extension case is between here, and then this is the oil case. Even though I don't know why they call it the oil case, but whatever. The name is what it is. In any case, there's a bolt in here. Ooh, it's pretty bright. But down below, right next to the shift lever, this shift detent, there's a bolt on top there. And I'm going to remove that bolt. And then down in below there even, there's a little pin that goes through. It's called a clevis pin. And there's a I don't know what the heck you call it, but a cotter pin, I guess, right through it. I'm trying to get something that I can point at it with. In any case, I'll use a pencil. So, of course, now I need my light. I'll shine it in here. So there's the bolt. Put a tap on it right here. And then right down in the very lower end, there's the pin here, and then on the other side is the cotter pin. You can just see it right on the tip of the pencil there, possibly. Not the best video, but iPhone 4, old school. In any case, yank those things out. That'll give some access to separation of the shift rod. And then there's some wires here. Got to disconnect them. And then this right here is the, let me put the light on it. This is the oil pressure sensor switch. So that's a rubber boot that comes off and it'll expose a bolt. And that'll have to get disconnected. Basically trying to disconnect anything that's going to allow, the complete lift up and removal of the engine off. Because that's basically the mission right now. And then down below there's some bolts. Going to take this case off here so they can actually access these bolts on the inside on both sides. So on this side, and then likewise over on this side here as well. And then excuse me. And then once that's been done, then basically take the bolts off underneath. And then ultimately, why we're doing all of that, why we're dropping that lower unit, isn't really obvious. But if you see in this video or on this this picture, there's actually a couple of bolts on the inside, here, here, and here. And those bolts go up underneath the engine, and they can't be accessed unless this this extension case has been removed. And so there's one other bolt that's right here, just underneath the this cover that I had taken off. You can see right up underneath the exhaust. This is referred to as the hidden bolt, right here where I'm pointing with my finger. And you can see in the photo here that it also refers to the concealed bolt. Not the best video I know, but anyway, bear with me. So I'm going to start tearing it down, but basically that's the goal. Those are the steps that I'm going to go through, and I might take a couple more snaps as I'm going along just to show how it looks. Thanks. So that's that little clevis pin. You can see it right there. And the cotter pin. I'm going to tell you, I use this. This is kind of a bugger. As you can imagine, the cotter pins are probably bent over like on your propeller. Anyway, I have these, I'll put it down so you can see it better. I've got this set of little tools, little, come in a set like this. And this is the one I ended up using. It's a 90-degree angle. Anyway, I ended up putting that into the loop, you know, on one side, just enough so I could grab it. And then I have this other long screwdriver, kind of a small head. I don't know if you can see it, damn thing. In any case, it's fairly long. It's maybe about 9 inches long, with a small head on it. And with that, I was able to, you know, hold the loop end with that pointy device, and then, you know, basically pry at it with, you know, just kind of twisting it to get that cotter pin completely opened up. It took me about 5 minutes to do it, but I'm at the point now where I'm ready to try and, you know, pull it out with that pointy 90-degree angle device. Like I said, I'm gonna stick my my magnetic device in there because I have a feeling that thing is magnetic, and I don't want to lose it. You know, a piece of wire might be a good call also, so it doesn't drop down into the lower unit or the oil case or whatever the hell this damn thing's called. There you go. Here I am just getting that first bolt off on the rectifier. I forgot to mention the rectifier has to be pulled out as well. Anyway, I got a real small 1/4-inch socket that gets in there just nicely enough. And so anyway, I'll work that out, and then after that I'll get the pin. So a little recap of what I've done. I did get the, all right, so I guess the clevis pin here, I did drop the engine into forward gear to make that pin a little bit more accessible. So you can see it's risen up a little bit. The cotter pin, I have to forgive me, Father, for I've sinned, but I did lose the damn thing. I actually had it in my, used that little pointy thing that I mentioned, and I actually had it with the magnet on it, but it popped out away from me, so I'm going to have to replace that little bugger. And then the other thing is pulling the clevis pin out. I used a pair of tweezers, and it did fall, and it felt way in there in the back of the engine, and I was able to pull it out with the magnet. It was very, very lightly magnetic, and it ended up dropping again. So the reason I'm even mentioning that is, you know, make sure your floor is really clean when things fall. So I swept everything up, and in the event I drop anything again, I'll notice it. Other things, I guess, to note would be the wire harness here. In particular, you know, the things that need to be disconnected are basically anything that prevents the engine from being lifted up and out. And so one is this oil pressure switch, or the wires associated with the oil pressure, this little light that turns green for you. And the other thing is the engine kill switch. So you can trace these wires back and they'll come off. And basically just take a look at this wire harness, and anything that's lifting, you know, going to prevent it from lifting up needs to come undone. There's a little ground wire that had the little flexible piece of metal that goes over it. That needed to come off because that was going to be, the ground was going to prevent it from lifting up. In terms of the rectifier, I don't really know why that needed to get disconnected, but it did in terms of the bolt down below. I think just disconnecting the wires may have been good enough. It also says, you know, the oil pressure switch, disconnect both the wires at the harness here as well as at the base. I'm leaving this thing on for the time being. I just don't see the point in taking it off. Other stuff, I removed the faceplate, and basically now I'm at the point where I'm ready to remove the 4 bolts underneath and drop this extension case down. So I think that's about it where I am, and hopefully it goes smooth. Okay, so anyway, this is probably a worthy point. In order to get this thing, I dropped this thing down after getting the 4 bolts out. I had to take this thing, I probably shouldn't have, but I did. I tapped it carefully with a hammer in kind of, you know, strong areas. I didn't tap it here on the ass end above the fin plate because it's pretty hollow and shallow. But I tapped it a little bit in the front, you know, down at the lower part. And then ultimately, what ended up getting it to drop is I took it with 2 hands, you know, one here and then the other one on the back side of the engine, and basically kind of shaking it. And I could see that the hairline, you know, was separating just slightly, but I was kind of like, geez, how's this damn thing going to come apart? Because it seemed like it was moving somewhat freely, but just not dropping. And so the other thing I did is I just kind of turned the propeller a little bit to kind of loosen up the gear against the engine, any friction there, and then basically drop. But the big point is probably this right here, which is the water tube. Probably not the best focus, but you can see there's a considerable amount of salt built up around that, which implies to me that you know, that's a potential at-risk point. I haven't looked up underneath yet. Let's do that now and see what it looks like underneath there. That's the bottom. So you can see there's a shitload of salt. Yeah, there's really a shitload of it there. Probably more than there should be, right? And so I'm gonna have to remove this casing completely, and basically these bolts here have to come off, by the way. Well, actually, you can't see where I'm pointing. I can't, right around that rubber housing where I'm zooming in on, there's 3 bolts, 1, 2, and then there's a third one over there somewhere. Right there. Anyway, those 3 are going to have to come off. Those are part of the exhaust, the rubber housing for the exhaust. And those are going to have to come off to expose the bolts underneath. So there you go. I have a feeling that's that little bugger right there, since that's the feed into the oil case. I have a feeling that could be part of my issue, but in any case, there you go. That's one more step in the puzzle. Piece that I have in my hand. This is a rubber gasket, I guess a grommet, for the exhaust pipe. It sits up. That's the piece. This top piece sits up into the bottom of the oil case, and this bottom is exposed down into the exhaust, so you can see the carbon on it. Obviously, crap load of buildup on this thing in terms of making a good seal, which you know, doesn't affect any of the oil, but obviously I took it off to I'm just going to replace the damn thing since I'm in here. I probably should have been going into this lower unit a lot more than I have been, which is basically never, but in any case, we'll, oh, one other thing I guess that's probably worth mentioning is that I'll just zoom up inside here. That's the bottom, you know, where this piece that I just took off comes from. So that's the bottom, and it sits up in there like so. The only reason that needs to come off is to get access into that. There's a bolt up in there. It's called the concealed bolt. And I really didn't need to take this piece off because I already took the front of the case off where the pistons are. I don't know what the hell this piece is called here, but this piece here, as I mentioned, I think in one of the other video segments, is a bolt right underneath here on the oil pan, or underneath the oil case. That or it's actually part of the oil case right here. That needs to be pulled out, and I guess removing that exhaust section gives people better access to it, but of course I can just put a wrench on it pretty easily. Anyway, just figured that's worth mentioning. Long video, I know. One other thing I wanted to mention here on this water tube, you can see, if this damn thing zooms in, you can see that it's cracked. The rubber gasket down on the bottom right of that video, you can see how it's split. The O-ring is actually split. It's not just salt corrosion. There's an O-ring that goes around that thing, and it's actually broken. So whether that's been a factor in my, you know, my oil weeping in or not, I don't really know. But basically, I'm four bolts away from pulling this head off, and that's what's next. Alrighty, well, I popped it off, and here's the oil pickup, or the water pickup right there. And I have to tell you, it's not focusing very well right now, but I don't see any problems with that tube area. The O-ring itself looks like it's in pretty good shape as well. So I'm left a little bit curious now as to what the problem actually is. I did look again at this manifold and you know, the whole area around it. I mean, I've cleaned it up obviously a little bit since. This is my thermostat from the original. I mean, it's obviously beat up like a son of a bitch, and this gasket broken away. I don't know. The water flow of this thing has me a little bit confused still about whether or not that could be a culprit in causing any of the water to get into the oil. But that and you know, still this little piece here, the pickup tube, and how bad that is. Bad video. Hard to zoom in. In any case, I'm going to order the parts and you know, the gaskets and all that type of stuff. And I was kind of hoping this O-ring was going to be bad on the engine there, on the base. And then, but it's not. So I guess I'll do some reassembly here. I mean, none of these other O-rings around the drive shaft or anything else look bad. So that's about it. I guess I'll throw this up. I'll ask if there's any advice on anything else anybody wants to point out, but otherwise I'm kind of out of ideas. Seems like it's okay with the exception of this manifold. It was very, very corroded when I took it apart. I probably should have videotaped that originally, but anyway, that's it. I guess one other thing that I forgot to mention is, and I forgot to do it, but I pulled off the oil fill. You know, this is the oil fill cap. Where the water comes up and goes out the water tube, you know, this brass tube on the left is the one that the water flows out of. There's a little bit of corrosion around it. It's not terrible, but it does kind of press right up against the you know, the O-ring that goes around. So that could be a source of the problem. Could very well be. It doesn't look like there's any signs of salt on the actual inside of the cap, like, you know, in where the dipstick area comes out of. But definitely, you know, where the water comes up and goes through. And like I said, the O-ring is pretty darn compressed, so it could be a factor here. This definitely could be a factor. I might take a picture of that because it'll come up better than the video. In any case, I'll take a, you know, around the seal of this thing here as well. It's not bad, and like I said, I'll take a picture of this area here too. It's coming out horribly in the video, but there is some buildup around it. Like I said, I'm pretty much out of ideas. I'm not doing anything else with the head here in terms of tear down. But that's it.